Welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast, hosted by coaches Bill and Essen. With so many fitness fads and trends, compounded with hundreds of mixed reviews, it is nice to know that this madness can be simplified into meaningful content, whether you want to believe it or not. There are millions of Americans that are literally eating themselves to death, a learned behavior that has been passed down from generation to generation. Let's connect with the team that has the knowledge and experience to change this.
Well, everyone, this is Coach Bill with Coach Eston, and today's segment is regarding cellulite. We all think we know what this is, what causes it. However, today we're going to discuss a little more detail how it commonly occurs in women and some strategies to control it, and even possibly get rid of it. Here to talk more about this is Coach Eston. Coach Eston, get away.
Hello, Bill. Hi. So thank you for that. So let's talk about what cellulite is. Technically or anatomically, cellulite does not exist. It is not a tissue. It is a condition. The word cellulite actually comes from French manufacturers of body moisturizer. I think it was back in the 1920s. They created this word to sell a product. But medically, we now define cellulite. Now, this is where it gets a little medical terminology. So cellulite is the herniation or breaking through of the subcutaneous fat within fibrous connective tissue, and that then manifests topographically as skin dimpling and giving nodules, often in the pelvic region, specifically the buttocks, lower limbs, and the abdomen. So what does that mean in lay terms? This means it's basically inflammation of fat cells in the adipose or superficial layer of the dermis. Adipose means fat. Combined with scar tissue or hardening of the connective tissues, also known as fascia, which wrap the body together and hold everything together, and then plus water retention. So cellulite occurs most often in post-pubescent females. That's females that have gone through puberty, and hormones are thought to be a determining factor of why females are more susceptible to this type of condition than males. If we want to keep using the word cellulite, it's again caused by a buildup of fat underneath the skin. We anatomically have fat under the skin as an insulator and a cushion and a fat reserve. So anatomically, it's perfectly natural to have fat under our skin. It gives us a little bit of contouring too. So some females are more predisposed to it than others, so we think there may be some genetic causes. Like I mentioned before, hormones are thought to also be a cause. Estrogen is the main female hormone, so estrogen means females tend to have more fat than males, but where they store it and the structure of the skin play major contributing factors to this. So in females, the skin and the underlying connective tissue is thinner and the fat layer is actually thicker. In males, their skin or our skin is actually thicker and the underlying connective tissue is also thicker, but our fat layers are thinner. Males...
Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine.
True or false? Males have cellulite just like women.
Well, technically that's false because cellulite doesn't exist, but the better way to phrase that is men have subcutaneous fat just like women, and that is true.
However, the skin has a factor in how it appears or shows?
Well, the anatomical or the genetic structuring of it, yes. So some men can get this condition called cellulite. Usually it occurs in men that are extremely obese.
Okay.
And it's a rarity, but yes, men can get this, but it's more likely a female condition. And that's partly because how men and women, we store fat differently. Men tend to hold more of their fat in their abdomen, or females store it more in their buttocks and thighs. And that's thought just due to the hunter-gatherer origins that we come from. And since females are doing the development and birthing and nurturing of babies, that's where fat stores are tended to be needed for reproductive purposes as well as the breasts. So the reason why cellulite is visible is because the underlying musculature pushes the fat against the connective tissue or the fascia and the skin, and that causes the dimpling. When I was in college, our professor had us take gauze and open up a gauze strip,
Mm-hmm.
press it
Mm-hmm.
down on pudding, and he said, now imagine that's the fat is the pudding or custard, and then the gauze is the fascia under the skin, and when you push it through, it starts to dimple or pimple up through the little squares inside the gauze. And then if you put like sheet cloth over that and press them both down, you begin to see the cottage cheese dimpling effect. So that's all it is. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay.
It does.
So another thing is tension that the body goes through when we move. For most of us, or all of us, our abdomen is not composed of muscle, but for most of us, it's not in motion all the time. Whereas the hips and the thighs, as people, we use this areas more to move around. This causes more tension, and that will then cause that force of moving for the fat to go through and out onto the surface. So because of just the areas of the body that we're using, that causes tension. But that doesn't mean if you're a couch potato, you're not going to get cellulite, because even the force of gravity pushing down on the body when you're in that, pose of lying down or sitting down can also create force too.
Mm-hmm.
So people have always asked me, well, how noticeable can it be? Well, of course, we always go back to genetics. So that also depends on your genetics, which can be as noticeable for young females as early as their 20s. Body fat percentages is also a factor. The higher your body fat, the more likely you will have this condition if you are genetically predisposed to it. And of course, age. We mentioned age. So age, which usually has a direct correlation to the thickness of your skin, which also affects the appearance of this, and I say this in quotes, cellulite.
So what's that mean? The skin. Does males have thicker skin than?
Yes, women have thinner. So that's why when we do the aging process, if you just look at how women's faces age and their décolleté and neck age, different than men. How the back of women's arms age differently than men. Men, they say men get better with age. They seem to age better than women because of the sagging and the collagen factors and the hormonal factors of the two. Women's, because their skin is already thinner and less supported, if you will, it tends to give into gravity quicker and faster than men.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, so that's genetics. So that's one cause. There's some things I talk about, with my clients, is like some causes are genetics. This of course, there does seem to be a link between genetics. However, there have been studies that have shown that if you modify lifestyle, of course, with anything, you can kind of tinker with those genetic predispositions. Also, the human body's lymphatic system has something to do that. And if you don't know what the lymphatics do, basically our lymphatic system, it serves as a drainage that helps the body get rid of any waste that may be in the blood or in the spaces between our tissues. So we have specialized little biological filters located within the lymphatic network called lymph nodes. They can become bloated by unhealthy habits like bad diet, lack of exercise, because the lymphatic system, although it has the vessels have little valves like our veins to help the fluid get put where it needs to go, it relies heavily on movement. I don't know if you've ever really been kind of sick and you just kind of feel like weighted down and you're like, okay, that's it. I got to get up and move around. I can't lie around here anymore. That's your biofeedback telling you from your lymphatic system, I need some help here. I need to help flush all this stuff out. I need to get this waste through the body and into the kidneys and, flushed out. So I need your help here. I need the muscles to start squeezing on these vessels to move this fluid through the body. So lymphatics help. That's why a lot of spa treatments really treat the lymphatic system to reduce the appearance of cellulite. That's what they're doing. They wrap you up in these big bandages to squeeze your limbs so it forces the fluid through those channels to get processed through the body. And that's why after the treatment, which also involves sweating, a little bit of dehydration, the appearance looks better for a few hours, a few days, and then if you go back to your old habits, of course, it comes right back.
Gotcha.
And aging, of course, we always have to throw aging in. So people often think that getting older causes cellulite. Doctors tend to agree. It's not necessarily age that's the problem. It's more that the effects of the mature skin, like cellulite, is more noticeable. Again, as we get older, we tend to get more dehydrated. Things tend to shrink back, and anything that's underlying is more noticeable. So it may look worse because as the skin ages, again, it's losing elasticity, will, of course, sag a little more. Toxins and diet are always a cause for a lot of things. So toxins technically do not cause cellulite. However, diet does play a role because of the inflammation process. So if you're eating a lot of foods that inflame your body, like dairy or soda, they can worsen these conditions.
Now, let me ask a question. If inflaming or inflammatory is a effect, the cause is because you're allergic to it, or it causes irritation, you don't digest it well, or what do you mean by what causes from eating?
Well, D, all of the above.
Like dairy.
Yeah, D.
Okay.
So inflammation is the body's response. It's your immune system's response to what it perceives as an invasion or something that doesn't belong there. So it tries to wall off an area and self-contain it so it can deal with it. And as we mentioned before in some of the other podcasts, just because food is a healthy food does not mean it's healthy for you. Because if you can't digest something, it begins to rot and putrefy in your gut. And that then the body perceives, the immune system perceives that as an invading danger. So it feels it needs to wall it off to get it from getting into the rest of the body. So yes, like some people just can't digest dairy. You just can't. Some people don't handle all that sugar in confectionery beverages like soda pop. That's why we talked about before, and I'll say again, you need to listen to your body. Food is fuel. If after you eat something you don't feel energized, then you shouldn't be maybe taking that into your body. If you feel lethargic, if you feel gassy and bloated and weighed down by the food, then that food isn't working for you. You need to find food that it actually will fuel you, like gasoline or petrol in a car. So some other foods that can cause this are like cheese. Again, it's a dairy base because it's hot. Also because it's high in sodium. Cheese can create water retention in the body, which leads to bloat and water weight gains. Bloat and water retention makes cellulite more visible.
Makes sense.
Deli meats. Not only can processed meats lead to a host of health problems, which we talked about in that podcast on nutrition, but and that's partly because of their high sodium count. Again, that can make cellulite more noticeable through water retention and bloating. Believe it or not, barbecue sauce, I know it's a favorite sauce, but it's high, it's ultra high in sugar, which can lead to weight gain and increase the visibility of cellulite. Because again, of the sugars, the body converts the sugar into a fat. You store the fat, that makes the cellulite more visible. In addition, barbecue sauce can cause blood sugar levels to spike. That will release insulin, and insulin is a fat-sparing hormone. Okay. Pizza, I know. I'm not
really? I never knew.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
Well, pizza can slow down the flow of oxygen and circulation, and then the connective tissues, again known as fascia, can start to weaken. As a result, the skin looks more rippled.
Wait a minute. How can pizza slow down the flow of oxygen?
Think about what's in pizza. Cheese. We just talked about cheese, right? Some type of sauce, right?
Yeah.
Some type of processed deli meat. So it's already got three strikes against it, maybe. But usually most people
I don't want meat on my pizza.
All right, but then you still have the cheese. And then you also have the yeast that's in the dough. Yeast live on sugars.
What if I were going for the protein, though? I mean, there's protein in pizza.
I agree. But if pizza is one of your mainstays, think about yeast need oxygen. So yeast is going to live off of whatever. It's almost like a parasite in your gut. So it slows down the flow of oxygen because it needs oxygen to live.
Interesting.
So you have this organism growing in your gut, living off of you. This is
that way. It sounds so bad.
Well, it kind of is. This is why a lot of times, eating a lot of bread, and I'm a bread, the things I've done for bread, I love bread, like sourdough. I love all that stuff, but too much of it, some of the stuff that's in the food stays as a residue in your gut, and especially like yeast, it grows and cultivates and becomes part of your internal flora and fauna. And yeah, you got to feed it. That's why people start to crave sugars when they try to get off sugars, especially if they're eating like breads and food stuffs that have yeast in it. The yeast want the sugar to live. So they'll send chemicals into the bloodstream, which go to the brain, which causes you to crave sugars to keep it alive. Collagen is a protein that is like a building block, a scaffolding of the body, and it plays a key role in the smoothing and plumping of our skin especially. And since sugar slows down collagen production, something that already slows down with age as we age anyways, it can make you look a lot harder, the body skin look harder as opposed to having a smoother skin surface. So from soda to energy drinks, sugar is found in a host of beverages that can lead to cellulite being more visible. So that's why I don't drink it. Soda should not be your beverage of choice.
Well, real quick about carbonated water. That's soda, right? Carbonated water break down right in the body, right? It does not.
Yeah, anything that's carbonated is ultimately not really good for you. That's because of the phosphates that make the carbonation. They actually liberate calcium from your bones. Yeah, so carbonated beverages are not really your first choice. I personally don't like the bubbles. If anything, I would drink flat soda because I don't like the bubbles, except if it's in champagne. Moving on. So canned soup. These are also high in salt levels, so canned soup can increase water retention as well because of the sodium, therefore causing bloating throughout the entire body. And then if you're already predisposed to cellulite, well then, as a result, cellulite is more noticeable. Believe it or not, cottage cheese, I found this out. I thought that was interesting. Much like canned soups, cottage cheese is also high in sodium, which can increase water retention and bloat. And as a result, certain areas might appear more rippled and cellulite ridden. So I know a lot of people that are doing diets, they use cottage cheese as a supplement for their diet. And maybe if you have a cellulite problem, maybe cottage cheese isn't a good food choice for that. And a lot of people are trying to get away from a lot of like butter. They think butter is a bad word, so they use margarine, which it's not. Because margarine is rich in trans fat. Margarine can stunt, again, oxygen and circulation throughout the body. And as a result, it can lead to more visible signs of cellulite. And then I already mentioned white breads, especially those that are bagels that are made from white flour. So because the body likes to turn refined carbohydrates into sugars, known as glucose, these foods can break down collagen production and therefore increase the overall appearance of cellulite. So those are just some food choices that maybe aren't the best if you are suffering from this condition. Of course, I recommend always talking to a dietitian to find out what food choices are better for you. But overall, in general, those foods have been found not to be so good for this condition.
I'm going to actually add to that. Certainly, I mean, it's a soda, canned soup, margarine, breads. Those are real high on anyone's list to stay from anyway. So
yeah, those are not good food choices just in general. Processed meats, but especially in this condition. Meats, and generally, someone who has cellulite, this condition of cellulite, they're also trying to lose body fat. So it's a double whammy. The cellulite is the physical manifestation of an underlying maybe obese problem. So you're trying to fight this obesity while also trying to fight this condition. And then I've had clients that have gotten their body fat down, but because of the scarring, the cellulite appearance really doesn't go away. It just diminishes. And this is when moisturizers and certain spa treatments, then they can come into play to help the skin become supple and look smoother again at this point. So
a good point. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I'm not poo-pooing these spa treatments. Don't forget, I'm a massage therapist. I've worked in the spa industry for way too long, and a lot of it is hokum. A lot of it is dubious. They're there to sell products, and they charge you way too much money. But in certain conditions, certain instances, in whatever phase you are in your fat weight reduction, they can play a role to help the process, but usually at the end of it, not at the beginning of it.
That's what the point I wanted to make is. It frustrates me too, especially even with, I go out on a tangent here for about 30 seconds.
Okay, I'll start timing you.
And go. So it's not just spas, it's just health and fitness, wellness in general. People don't try to work on the source of the problem causing this condition. It's always trying to map. And what I'm trying to say is what's causing cellulite. You work on that, then you can go to the spa and really, it's like icing on the cake. You know, it shouldn't mask the problem.
Yeah, you have to look at the underlying causes, and then you can deal with the after effects. Yeah. So that kind of brings us into how to get rid of cellulite, and I say that in quotes. So without getting into all the long-winded response, so in short, the answer is there is no cure for cellulite, according to most physicians. Dermatologists say that while individuals, the dimpling may disappear, again, if you're predisposed to cellulite, your body will just do more of it, because it's just how the meshing of your subcutaneous fascia is put together, and the fat, the relationship, how it's put together.
So true or false? Less fat, less dimpling.
Correct, and therefore this is where like exercise and dealing with your lymphatic system come into play. So people often think that they can just exercise away the dimples, but that's far from the truth for most people that have said, well, then exercise doesn't work for me. But however, regular cardiovascular and strength training with toning your musculature will help decrease the appearance of your cellulite. Highly stressful lifestyles will increase adrenaline and noradrenaline. These are hormones which are part of your fight or flight response, and they've been associated with showing cellulite more predominantly. And that's probably because they can also exacerbate inflammation.
Right.
And then that's kind of like how exercise plays a role in this. It's a minor role. Overall, exercise is just good for the body, and all it can do is make the body look healthier, give you a better glow, a better shine, a more supple curvature to your body overall. But again, it seems to come back to the lymphatics again. So this is where, as a massage therapist, I'm going to kind of put a plug in there. So doing deep tissue massage or using like a body scrub to stimulate your lymphatic vessels will increase blood flow. So, you know, if you've ever had a body scrub, it's very viscerate.
Right.
Right. And it uses seaweed,
you're right.
algae, olive oil. All this will stimulate lymphatic drainage because it's like you're doing a scrub. You know, you're rubbing the skin very, very rough. You're kind of whipping it up, right? So it needs to be done regularly to see a change, coupled with a clean diet again. So it's not just these spa treatments. And caffeine. Caffeine and retinol-based topicals can stimulate the production of collagen and even another protein called elastin. So collagen gives your skin the tensile strength, and elastin allows it to move. So if you ever like took your forearm and tugged on it, you'll notice that the skin moves, but you can't rip it off your flesh. And that's because the collagen holds it in place, and the elastin gives it that little bit of give. So caffeine, believe it or not, and like I said, those retinol-based topicals have been shown to help with that. So again, spa treatments have their place, but always kind of look at what is the product, what's in the product, what's the outcome, and how many times do you have to do it? One massage never solved any problem. One spa treatment is not going to solve this condition. So a lot of people then resort to what's called cosmetic surgery or lipo or liposuction. It can actually make the cellulite worse, because you go in there, and when they go in there with that little tube, they go in there and disturb all the fascia. And that can even break down the fascia, the collagen, elastin fibers even worse. So there's been two treatments which have shown some optimal results. One is called VelaShape, and this is a short-term treatment that uses infrared laser, radio frequency, and vacuum suction to pull in the skin and thicken the tissue, making the cellulite less visible. As a result, will fade after you stop treatments, of course. This option is only recommended for special occasions like a beach honeymoon or preparation for swimsuit season.
Wow.
You're going to put it above your bed. Another one is called Selfina. It's a better long-term option to create dimple-free skin. It can last 2 or more years, actually. It's the longest FDA clearance for a cellulite treatment, and it works by changing the underlying structure that causes cellulite by breaking the fibrous tissue bands pulling on the skin, that scar tissue. It breaks up the scar tissue. The groundbreaking treatment won actually a Good Housekeeping Beauty Breakthrough Award. Of course, everyone knows about that, like the Oscars. With the females, with females in the clinical study, they reported 96% satisfaction after 2 years, and there was no evidence of the cellulite returning. Pain was reported to be moderate, consistent with other cosmetic procedures. And that was done by, there was it's called Beauty Lab. They did the analysis, and that's what they found. So if a person is considering a treatment, I would always say and advise them to talk to a board-certified dermatologist or cosmetic surgeon, just to learn more and make an informed decision for you. A person with this condition obviously has probably some type of sluggish lymphatic system. And if exercise isn't doing that, they're moving, they're doing what they can, they're watching their diet, they're shying away from inflammatory foods for them, and they're working and they still are missing, like, what am I not doing? Try massage. Try some spa treatments and coupling with it, and you may get better results. And yes, men can get it too.
Yep.
That's just how the body is designed to stay, because fat is precious. Fat is like the lottery money. The way the body looks at it is that this is something that doesn't come around a lot. We've got to store that and put that away and really never use it. But if you have fat coming in, you can take fat out. So it's just the amount of fat that comes in versus the amount of fat that goes out. The body sometimes doesn't check that as well. Our bodies our digestion needs movement. I just talked about your lymphatic system needs movement. Your circulatory, our entire body is built where movement is a component of our daily lives. It helps us circulate our blood. It helps us remove waste. It helps us digest food. It helps with everything in the body. The body is not meant to sit and be like a Jabba the Hutt. The body will actually corrode and rust and break down if it's sedentary too long. Cellulite can just be the visible outward appearance of something underlying that could not be so healthy for you. Not always, but it can be your body showing you, look, we've got too much of this. We got to do something. So take it as a visible sign that maybe you need to readjust your diet, readjust your movement patterns, and take it as a nice little warning from your body going, look, something's going on here. Help me out here. And who we are as humans and what those roles play in our life. And again, cellulite, although it is a genetic propensity, it could be, again, like a visual warning or a little yellow flag that your body is sending up to you about your food choices and your movement choices. So look at it as that, less than a beauty thing, like, oh my God, I'm not desirable. Don't look at it that way. Look at it as like, what is my body trying to tell me here?
Right.
And then try to make healthier choices based on that.
Yeah, well said. Okay, well, that was very educational as always. And, it really is what we try to convey to our listeners is it really has a lot to do with your eating and your lifestyle, period.
Yeah.
That's so like
choices, people, choices.
All right. Well, enough said. With that, we are out of time, and this concludes our podcast with Coach Bill and Coach Eston. But tune in to our next podcast. We'll be discussing why men get low testosterone as they age and how you can try to reverse that. Until then, be healthy, be strong, be a life warrior.
And be well.
The opinions and topics expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily support the opinions and views of the wellness community. We would love to hear your thoughts, so click on the message button and give us your constructive feedback. Thank you for listening and make a positive difference today.